Good afternoon, you little numpkins. Um, yeah, I wanted to talk about poetry just for a little bit, right? Because it's so mad. Like, you know, what's going on with poetry? What is it supposed to be like? What is it supposed to mean? You know, um, yeah, like, do you need a degree to read this or something? It's like, no, 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 you don't. Can you read? No. Oh, well, Jesus Christ. I'll read it to you, right? You know what I mean? But poetry, for the most part, I mean, this could be a prejudice of mine, but I find sometimes that it kind of caters to certain wee sectors and circles, and some others that sometimes might be fit to benefit from the essence of the poem. They're kind of excluded, you know. Maybe just by their own kind of suppositions, as to what reading poetry is, and what is there to be had out of it, you know. But like, basically, the way that I would look at it is that it's human experience, you know. So it's what each of us and all of us go through, you know. Sometimes it's just about what the poet goes through, and oh, I'm in the throes of this great emotional tirade, and like, I'm such a genius, fucking hell, all out there, it can get a bit tiring sometimes, I find, not when I do it, of course, but so, but I think even, that kind of notion of the authors that this is some kind of original thing is actually erroneous, or it's kind of thwarted, because it's like, see, if you're writing a poem, you know what I mean? You sort of bang a few words together. Let them two rhyme. There's the one. That's the end of that line there, isn't it? And then 2 lines down, so them two rhyme. So that kind of goes. And doesn't that but sound good there, doesn't it? It kind of sounds like something somebody would say and all that there. And it's like, yeah. And that's all you do. You just knock together wee bits and bobs. It's like a puzzle, and you're like, you know what I mean? At least I find that is one way into sort of piercing the essence of the poem. It's just basically playing around with words, and that kind of gets the ball rolling. And whatever's going on inside of you emotionally, whatever's been happening in your life that week, whatever that is, maybe you've processed it and you're just raw at the far end of it, and for some reason you want to write, and you pick up and you write dibbly dab, and you go, well, that looks as if it could be good. I wonder if I take that word and just put it in there. Are we allowed to do that? You can do whatever you want, mate. This is poetry. Like, this is, you make the rules. No, you're not. That is a rule. You're not allowed to do that there. Don't do that again, or you're not getting back into this classroom. You little numpkin. But so yeah, I mean, like, this was kind of brought home to me earlier whenever I wrote a wee poem, because that's exactly what happened. I thought I was, writing something that was I was trying to sound like I knew what I was on about, you know what I mean? And I kind of looked at the shape of it and the way it was formatted in terms of how the words were spaced out. It's like, well, there's 2 sentences spread over 3 lines there. Why didn't you put it all in 1 line? Well, look, see if you do that there, and not there, not there. Each one of them lines can then mean a different thing. Even though it's all 1 sentence and it all means 1 thing, suddenly you've got these other 3 images as well, and then what the combinations of those might mean, etc., etc. You know, I'm not sure if everybody interprets poetry that same way. I believe that there's a visual aspect to it as to how it looks on the page, just in terms of the lettering. Like, you know, can sometimes just tell you something, you know. Sounds a bit silly, but, you know, a lot of the things I say sound quite silly. But, so the one that I wrote, right, and like I say, you play around with words to get you started. So this is the first 3 lines. At the speed of snail, assisted a dipso's descent into torment. Right, so they're short lines. This is the way I write them. At the speed of snail. Thought to myself, that's really clever, isn't it? Speed of snail, that's quite good. I'm surprised I haven't heard that before, because it's a bit obvious, but that's a banger. Like, so we'll open with that. You know, next up, come assisted adipsos. Oh, I see what you done there. Them 2 words sound quite similar. You put them together. You know, clever clocks. I was like, yeah, I did. But also, do you know what a dipso is? Like, well, like a dipstick or something like that there, a dickhead. No, a dipsomaniac is somebody who has a drinking problem. Isn't that kind of cool, isn't it? Right, so what were you doing with a dipsomaniac? You know what I mean? What were you up to, like? And what were you assisting him in? Well, if you read the next line there, I was assisting them into their descent into torment. So, like, we don't have all day to really scrutinise that. It does seem a bit suspicious that somebody would want to assist somebody and you know, in torturing themselves or something like that. There, what's that all about? I find sometimes I've got bipolar, right? So, just my personality is I'll just talk and talk and go on. And if I'm being funny, I'll keep trying to be funny. You know, if I'm being smart, the same type of thing. And I'm trying to learn not to. And I'm being assisted by people who have a bit more common sense than me. And what they'll do is they'll just cut me off just at the crucial moment. Or they'll completely, you know what I mean? They'll come out with an absolute cracker of a line, and I'll be the butt of the joke, and I'll be like, I was really sore. I'm going to try and not talk so much next time. You know what I mean? So, the crack is I was being assisted then in my own descent, not so much into torment. There was a little bit of torment in it, but the torment or the torture is necessary sometimes for us to learn. Some of us are, you know, can't just sit in the classroom and read the book and go A, B, C, 6, did you look at the elementary table of eugenics there today, Mr. Core? Oh, I memorised it and all that. I've got a photographic memory and all that there too, don't I? Brilliant. There's your passport you had there, has she? You know, it's like, you know, some people need actually, you know, certain lessons and things beat them, like, you know what I mean? Which is cruel, but that's the only thing that works for some people. So, you know, cruel to be kind and all that there. So anyway, that's your first stanza, which is just a verse, which is your first little chunk of poetry, right? The next slide says, no business of mine. So at first admits to this, you know, despicable conduct, and then straight off the bat says it was no business of mine. It was no business of mine, right? So he's off the hook there, you know. Obviously the author is somewhat deranged, you know. So you do get a bit of wee. And this might interest or intrigue people whenever they're reading poetry, especially by local poets and by people that they know. Even same with artists of any kind. It's kind of a bit more interesting because you get a bit of a look into their mindset and stuff, or what you think might be their mindset. So anyway, after that, now this is the key part, baby. Will you hear it, right? It says, right, make it 4 lines. I'm gonna do the old Rochambeau, right? I didn't make it all the way home through a troubled childhood. just to cut and fade. So, to me, how I read that, how that reads, right, depending on what your mood is, let's just say, he says, I didn't make it. Whatever he set out to do there, he didn't make it. So this is now an admission of inadequacy and an admission of having failed at whatever the task was. All right, so that kind of sets the tone for that for me. And then he says, all the way home, which to me just sketches out a verbal kind of image where you can almost see where this guy was up in a flat with his mate who's a dipsaw, and he didn't make it. He's got this failure, and all the way home. So, because we all know what that walk's like, don't we? You know what I mean? It's a hard-out walk. After that, it says, through a troubled childhood. So it seems like whatever emotional exchange took place between the dipso and the protagonist has triggered some kind of emotional reaction, right, in the author. So on his way home, he has described his journey as walking through a troubled childhood, which is quite extreme, isn't it? But that's what he says. And then the last line of this stanza, right, is just to cut and fade. So that to me is him saying he'd gone away from this kind of profound and important, vital kind of task, of enlisting and assisting with humanity. And, he's come through all that old shite and he walks home and he just cuts. He's just like, nah, I don't have it in me. I'm not good enough, and then fades off. He fades from prominence. He fades from relevance. He fades from... There's another big word there, but your man with the camera there is going to wallop me about the head if I try and find it, right? So, the last bit then says, a wee bit of hard labour never killed nobody. Shouldn't that be never killed anybody? It should be, but we are purposefully using the vernacular here. The vernacular being just the way people actually talk. If you think of an old working class guy, probably shouting at an attractive woman from a building site or something like that there, right? The sort of guy I'm telling you about. These are the guys we need to be reading the poetry, you know what I'm saying? Anyway, this key verse, now, what I want to show you, which I think is interesting, if you go to that with positivity, right, and you just read the whole thing as one unending sentence, or the stops aren't in it. It's just one sentence. He says, I didn't make it. He says, I didn't make it all the way home through a troubled childhood just to cut and fade. So this then can be looked at as a statement of defiance. He has failed, and he's had to walk off from this. And so he's proceeded that with no business of mine. It becomes dialogue then. No business of mine, almost like a question, as if somebody's accused him, saying, what are you getting involved in this for? He says, no business of mine. He says, I didn't make it all the way home. Home being the nice, central, good place he's in himself as a person now. Through a troubled childhood, just to cut and fade. Like this dickhead wants me to go and mind my own business. He says, this guy's life's at stake here. You know what I mean? And I didn't stay alive this whole time just to make some inadequate kind of contribution, Every time I die, it's so that I can help somebody else. Sometimes we're aware that that's our station in life as artists and as people, as human beings. And sometimes we don't know. We're just farting about, we're doing whatever, we're having our wee happy times, we're off making our Instagram posts and all that there. But as an artist like us, that's kind of what you're doing sometimes, isn't it? Sounds a bit heavy, but yeah. And the end bit says, a wee bit of hard labour never killed nobody. Just as a matter of interest, an acquaintance had mentioned to me that the Jews back in the day, right, when the Auschwitz and all that there, they painted them as labour camps when you were getting these guys in. They were like, come on, man, this is labour. Like, it was quite bad anyway to begin with. Like, you have to come to a camp and work and you're not getting paid or nothing like that there, you know what I mean? But that's sort of what they did. They told them, you know what I mean? I'm going to head into these labour camps, like. So, I mean, that just found its way in. It never killed nobody because, of course, they went on to be, you know, murdered, like, you know. And we have something similar going on today, regardless of, you know, who's on what side and all that there, like. But it's funny stuff. It's funny stuff. But isn't that a lovely happy note to end the poetry thing on? You know, but we got it done, like, at the speed of snail. Guys, thank you very much, and everybody have a lovely wee day, and I'll talk to you some other time, probably.